I grew up among the smell of gasoline, stale coffee, and the rhythmic sound of wrenches hitting the concrete. My mentor was not a university professor, but my Uncle Sam. Sam spent 35 years in the heart of the automotive industry, working on assembly lines and in quality control departments. One day, while we were observing an 8-cylinder engine disassembled on his workbench, he confessed a truth to me that would change the way I see vehicles forever. Sam told me that modern cars are engineering miracles, but that they are designed under a perverse economic premise: planned obsolescence. What you are going to discover today are the secrets that Sam wrote down in a small leather notebook for decades. They are tricks that engineers know perfectly, but that marketing departments prefer to keep in the shadows. We are talking about techniques that can double the useful life of your engine, save you thousands of dollars in avoidable repairs, and give you back total control over your machine. Get ready, because we are going to dismantle the industry lies and reveal to you why trick number 7 is the reason why your engine could be dying in silence right at this moment. Rank 20, the myth of lifetime transmission oil. One of the darkest secrets that dealership mechanics are forbidden to mention is the thermal degradation of transmission fluid. If you open the manual of many modern vehicles, you will read with amazement that the gearbox oil is for life and that it requires no maintenance. Sam used to laugh at this while pointing to the broken transmissions piled in the corner of his workshop. In the world of real physics and chemistry, there is no such thing as an eternal lubricant. The transmission is an environment of constant friction where hundreds of clutch discs and planetary gears operate under massive hydraulic pressures. With every kilometer traveled, the fluid experiences extreme heat cycles that break its polymer chains. At a microscopic level, the oil begins to oxidize and lose its ability to keep parts separated. Furthermore, it becomes contaminated with metal particles and residue from the clutches that act like liquid sandpaper. When the manufacturer says for life, they actually mean the life of the warranty, which is usually about 150,000 kilometers. If you do not change that fluid, you are condemning your transmission to a catastrophic failure shortly after reaching that figure. Changing the transmission oil every 60,000 kilometers is the only way to guarantee that the solenoids and hydraulic valves do not become blocked by accumulated sludge. Mechanics prefer that you wait until the gearbox starts to jerk, because by then, the only solution is a complete replacement that costs more than $5,000. Keeping the fluid with its original cherry red color is the cheapest life insurance you can buy. But be careful, because the fuel you put in your tank is also fighting a chemical battle against your injectors, as we will see in Rank 19. Rank 19, the deception of premium gasoline and carbon deposits. There is a widespread belief that putting high-octane or premium gasoline is a gift for your engine. The reality is much more complex and less beneficial than advertising leads you to believe. Octane is not a measurement of power, but a measurement of resistance to premature detonation. If your engine does not have a high compression ratio designed for that fuel, you are throwing money through the exhaust. However, the true secret that mechanics do not tell you is the problem of carbon deposits on the intake valves. In modern direct injection engines, fuel is sprayed directly into the combustion chamber, which means that the gasoline never touches the back of the intake valves to clean them. Over time, oil vapors from the crankcase condense on those hot valves and create a carbon crust as hard as a stone. This restricts airflow and causes the engine to lose power and efficiency. Many mechanics will suggest an expensive chemical cleaning, but Sam had a much more effective and economical preventive trick. Once a month, you must perform what he called the Italian tune-up. It consists of taking the engine to high revolutions on an open road for about 20 minutes. The extreme heat generated in the combustion chambers helps to burn the carbon deposits before they harden. Additionally, the use of a high-quality cleaner additive with polyethyramine can help keep the injectors clean. The industry prefers that your engine fills with carbon so that you eventually need a cylinder head repair, but you can avoid it with a bit of enthusiastic driving and preventive chemistry. But do not relax, because there is a small piece of rubber in your brake system that could be sabotaging your safety without you realizing it, a topic we will explore in Rank 18. Rank 18, the forgotten brake fluid and internal corrosion. The brake system is, without a doubt, the most critical safety component of your vehicle, but its fluid is the most ignored in preventive maintenance. Brake fluid is hygroscopic, which means it has an almost magnetic capacity to absorb moisture from the air. Even in a closed system, moisture manages to seep through the microscopic pores of the rubber hoses and seals. Mechanics rarely suggest changing it unless the pedal feels spongy, but by that time, internal corrosion has already begun its destructive work. When the water content in the brake fluid exceeds 3%, two dangerous things happen. First, the boiling point of the liquid drops drastically. In an emergency braking situation or on a long descent, the liquid can boil, creating vapor bubbles that are compressible, resulting in a total loss of braking capacity. Second, the water starts to internally oxidize the pistons of the calipers and, most seriously, the delicate and very expensive modules of the anti-lock braking system. Sam always said that changing the brake fluid every 2 years is the difference between a system that lasts a lifetime and one that requires repairs of thousands of dollars. It is a simple procedure that keeps the pipes clean and the seals flexible. By bleeding the system, you eliminate the accumulated metallic sediments and ensure that pressure is distributed evenly. Do not allow moisture to turn your safety system into a rusty time bomb. And speaking of oxidation, there is a component under your hood that generates a killer dust for your electronics, which leads us to rank 17. Rank 17, the battery trap and silent sulfate. The majority of drivers only think about their battery when the car does not start on a cold morning. However, for mechanics, a neglected battery is a constant source of income from unexplained electrical failures. The chemical process inside the battery produces acid vapors that escape and react with the lead terminals, creating that characteristic white or bluish powder known as sulfation. This powder is not just dirt. It is an electrical insulator that increases the resistance of the system. When there is resistance at the terminals, the alternator has to work much harder to try to charge the battery, which generates excessive heat that shortens the useful life of the alternator itself. Additionally, voltage spikes caused by a poor connection can confuse the most sensitive sensors of the vehicle, triggering warning lights on the dashboard that do not have a real mechanical cause. Many workshops will charge you hours of diagnosis looking for a sensor failure, when the problem is simply a dirty contact. The professional secret to avoid this is to perform a deep cleaning once a month with a mixture of baking soda and water, followed by a generous application of dielectric grease or pure petroleum jelly on the terminals. This creates a hermetic seal that prevents the formation of sulfate. Sam also recommended checking the electrolyte level in batteries that are not sealed, always using distilled water. A well-cared-for battery not only lasts twice as long but protects the entire computer network of your car from expensive errors. But be careful, because even with a perfect battery, your engine could be suffocating due to a common oversight that we will deal with in rank 16. Rank 16, the air filter and cylinder erosion. The air filter is the lung of your engine. Its function is to trap dust particles, sand and debris before they enter the combustion chambers. An average engine consumes thousands of liters of air for every liter of fuel, and if that air is not perfectly clean, the result is catastrophic. Manufacturers usually suggest filter changes every 30,000 kilometers, but if you live in an environment with dust or pollution, that interval is a recipe for disaster. When an air filter is saturated, the engine has to make a greater suction effort, which increases fuel consumption and reduces power. But the true danger is micro-erosion. If the filter is old or of poor quality, tiny silica particles manage to pass through and act like a sandblast inside the cylinders. These particles scratch the cylinder walls and wear out the piston rings, causing the engine to start burning oil prematurely. Sam taught me that we should never skimp on the quality of the air filter. A recognized brand filter with a hermetic seal is vital. Additionally, a monthly visual inspection can reveal a lot to you. If the filter is grey or black, change it immediately. Do not try to blow it with compressed air, as this can enlarge the pores of the paper and allow the passage of harmful particles. Keeping your engine breathing clean is the simplest way to ensure that internal tolerances remain perfect for hundreds of thousands of kilometers. Get ready, because in rank 15 we're going to talk about a leak that does not drip liquid, but money directly from your wallet. Rank 15, the vacuum leak and chaos in the idling. Under the hood of your car, there is a complex network of rubber hoses that carry the vacuum generated by the engine to control everything from the brake booster to the gas purge system. Over time, extreme heat and vibrations cause these hoses to become brittle and develop small cracks. These are the famous vacuum leaks, a problem that mechanics love because the symptoms are frustrating for the user. Unstable idling, increased fuel consumption, and check engine lights that appear and disappear. When there is a vacuum leak, unmeasured air enters the engine, which confuses the car computer. To compensate for this excess oxygen, the computer injects more gasoline than necessary, which not only wastes fuel but also overheats the catalytic converter. Many workshops will suggest changing expensive sensors like the mass airflow or the oxygen, when in reality the solution is a $2 hose that is cracked. Sam's trick to detect this was simple. With the engine running, spray a little soapy water or brake cleaner over the hose connections. If the engine sound changes momentarily, you have found the leak. Checking the condition of these hoses preventively once a month will save you erroneous diagnoses and keep the air and fuel mixture at its optimum point of efficiency. It is a 5-minute inspection that protects the health of your emission components. But do not be careless, because in Rank 14 we will reveal the secret of why your air conditioning could be killing your engine in silence. Rank 14, the clogged condenser and the engine fever. Almost all drivers worry about the radiator, but few pay attention to the air conditioning condenser, which is usually mounted right in front of it. Due to its location, the condenser receives the direct impact of insects, leaves, and road dirt. Over time, the thin aluminum sheets become clogged, drastically reducing the airflow that reaches the main radiator. When the airflow is restricted, the engine cooling system has to work at the limit of its capacity. This means that the electric fans run constantly, wearing out their motors and increasing electrical consumption. The most serious thing is that on hot days, the coolant temperature rises above the ideal, which degrades the engine oil much faster and subjects the gaskets to excessive thermal pressure. Mechanics often do not mention the external cleaning of the radiator because they prefer to wait for the engine to overheat and the cylinder head to warp. Once a month, spend a few minutes cleaning the front of your car with a moderate pressure water hose. Never use a pressure washer up close, as you will bend the fins. Eliminating accumulated dirt allows your engine to sweat efficiently and the air conditioning to cool much faster. It is a free maintenance that reduces thermal stress on all components of the engine bay. And speaking of stress, Rank 13 deals with a part of your car that cries grease before giving up, a warning you cannot ignore. Rank 13, the constant velocity joint dust boots. If you hear a metallic clack, clack, clack when turning the steering wheel while accelerating, it is likely already too late. That sound indicates that the constant velocity joint, the part that transmits the engine power to the front wheels while you turn, is destroyed. However, this disaster can be completely avoided with a 30-second visual inspection per month. The secret lies in the rubber dust boots that protect these joints. These dust boots keep the special grease inside the joint and prevent water or sand from entering. Over time, the rubber cracks and breaks. The moment this happens, centrifugal force expels the grease outward, leaving the steel bearings working metal against metal. At the same time, road dust enters and acts like an emery. Many mechanics will wait for the part to fail to change the complete axle, which costs hundreds of dollars, instead of warning you that the dust boot is starting to crack. Every time you wash your car or check the tire pressure, turn the wheels completely to one side and observe the rubber boots behind the brakes. If you see traces of black grease splashed on the suspension, the dust boot is broken. Changing only the rubber costs a fraction of the price of a new axle. Keeping these joints lubricated and sealed is vital for driving smoothness and the integrity of your transmission. Get ready for Rank 12, where we will discover why the click of your gas cap could be saving you from a $1,000 warning light. Rank 13, the constant velocity joint dust boots. If you hear a metallic clack, clack, clack when turning the steering wheel while accelerating, it is likely already too late. That sound indicates that the constant velocity joint, the part that transmits the engine power to the front wheels while you turn, is destroyed. However, this disaster can be completely avoided with a 30-second visual inspection per month. The secret lies in the rubber dust boots that protect these joints. These dust boots keep the special grease inside the joint and prevent water or sand from entering. Over time, the rubber cracks and breaks. The moment this happens, centrifugal force expels the grease outward, leaving the steel bearings working metal against metal. At the same time, road dust enters and acts like an emery. Many mechanics will wait for the part to fail to change the complete axle, which costs hundreds of dollars, instead of warning you that the dust boot is starting to crack. Every time you wash your car or check the tire pressure, turn the wheels completely to one side and observe the rubber boots behind the brakes. If you see traces of black grease splashed on the suspension, the dust boot is broken. Changing only the rubber costs a fraction of the price of a new axle. Keeping these joints lubricated and sealed is vital for driving smoothness and the integrity of your transmission. Get ready for Rank 12, where we will discover why the click of your gas cap could be saving you from a $1,000 warning light. Rank 11, the seal conditioner and the prevention of oil leaks. Over the years, the rubber seals and gaskets of your engine lose their natural oils and become hard and brittle. This process is responsible for the annoying oil drops on the floor of your garage. Mechanics love oil leaks because they involve many hours of labor to disassemble parts of the engine and change a simple $5 seal. However, there is a way to prevent these seals from drying out in the first place. The secret that many ignore is the preventive use of seal conditioners found in high-quality oils or specific additives. These chemicals penetrate the rubber of the crankshaft and camshaft seals, returning their elasticity and sealing capacity. Sam recommended that once the car exceeds 100,000 kilometers, one should start using an oil formulated for high mileage, even if the engine does not show leaks. These oils contain mild swelling agents that keep the seals pressed against the metal surfaces. It is much cheaper to invest a few extra dollars in each oil change than to face a $1,000 repair to change a rear crankshaft seal. Preventing the dryness of the gaskets is the key to keeping an engine dry and clean for decades. We have reached the end of the first phase of this forbidden manual. We have unveiled the first 10 secrets that are saving thousands of drivers' fortunes in repairs. But this is only the warm-up. In Chapter 2, we are going to enter the war zone of mechanics. We are going to talk about that morning habit that 90% of people do wrong, and that is destroying their pistons. And we will reveal the secret number 1. That single monthly action that costs less than a coffee, but guarantees that your engine exceeds 500,000 kilometers without effort. Do not move, because what comes next will change your relationship with your car forever. Rank 10, the heating cycle and the expansion of metals. The most destructive error you can commit occurs in the first 60 seconds after turning the key. Sam used to say that a cold engine is like an athlete you force to run a marathon just as they wake up, without stretching and in the middle of an Arctic winter. The physics behind this is relentless. Your engine is composed of a mixture of aluminum alloys, cast iron and steel, each with a different thermal expansion coefficient. When the engine is cold, the tolerances between the pistons and the cylinder walls are not optimal. Most people start the car and speed off, believing that this way the engine warms up faster. What they are actually doing is subjecting the internal components to brutal mechanical stress. The oil, which has been resting at the bottom of the oil pan overnight, has the consistency of thick honey and takes several seconds to reach the highest points of the engine, such as the camshafts. During those initial moments, there is metal-to-metal contact that produces wear equivalent to 1,000 kilometers of normal driving. The professional secret consists of waiting barely 30 or 40 seconds before starting to drive. But the most important thing is to drive extremely smoothly during the first 10 minutes. You must not exceed 2,500 revolutions per minute until the temperature needle reaches its center point. Sam explained that this allows all the parts to expand uniformly and the oil to reach its design viscosity. Ignoring this is like sanding the inside of your engine every morning. But this is only the beginning of the thermal battle. In Rank 9, we will discover why your cooling system could have a silent infection. Rank 9, the coolant change and the electrolysis of the block. The coolant liquid is much more than water with coloring. It is a complex chemical solution designed to prevent freezing, boiling, and most importantly, corrosion. However, dealership mechanics rarely suggest changing it preventively because they prefer to wait for the radiator to leak or the water pump to fail. Sam taught me that coolant has a very defined chemical useful life, generally from 2 to 5 years, depending on its formulation. Over time, the coolant loses its corrosion-inhibiting agents and becomes acidic. At that moment, a fascinating and terrifying physical phenomenon occurs called electrolysis. The liquid becomes a kind of liquid battery that starts stealing electrons from the internal metallic components, such as the aluminum cylinder head or the engine block. This creates tiny microscopic craters that eventually turn into massive leaks, or even worse, into a mixture of oil and water that destroys the crankshaft bearings. The trick to avoid this is to perform a flush and change of the cooling system strictly following the manufacturer intervals, but always using distilled water for the mixture. Tap water contains minerals that accelerate calcification and electrolysis. Keeping the coolant fresh ensures that the hoses do not rot from the inside out, and that the engine always works in its ideal thermal range. A clean cooling system is the invisible shield that protects the structural integrity of your engine. But speaking of cleaning, Rank 8 deals with a component that mechanics clean in their own cars, but that they charge you to replace. Rank 8, the cleaning of the mass airflow sensor and intelligent consumption. The mass airflow sensor, known as mass airflow, is the brain that tells the car computer exactly how much oxygen is entering the engine. It is an extremely delicate component that uses an electrically heated platinum wire to perform the measurement. The problem is that even with a good air filter, microscopic particles of oil and dust manage to adhere to this wire, creating an insulating layer that distorts the reading. When the mass airflow sensor is dirty, the car computer receives erroneous information. Generally, the car begins to consume more gasoline than necessary. The throttle response becomes sluggish and you can feel small jerks when accelerating. An average mechanic will tell you that the sensor has failed and will charge you $300 for a new one. Sam, on the other hand, would take out a special contact cleaning aerosol that cost barely $10 and left the sensor like new in 5 minutes. Performing this cleaning once a year is a habit that keeps fuel efficiency at maximum levels. It is a precision task that returns vitality to the engine without the need for new parts. Keeping the electronic eyes of the engine clean allows combustion to be perfect, reducing emissions and spark plug wear. But do not trust electronics. In Rank 7, we will enter the world of heavy mechanics to talk about a component that holds your safety and that almost no one checks. Rank 7, the engine mounts and chassis fatigue. Your engine is not bolted directly to the chassis. It rests on blocks of rubber and metal called mounts or mountings. These components have the mission of absorbing the massive vibrations generated by the internal explosions of the engine. Over the years and heat cycles, the rubber cracks, hardens, or simply collapses. Sam used to say that a broken engine mount is like letting an elephant loose inside a glass cabinet. When the mounts fail, the engine begins to move more than it should. This excessive movement subjects the radiator hoses, the electrical cables, and above all, the transmission joints to enormous stress. Many drivers assume that the vibrations they feel in the steering wheel or in the seat are engine failures, when in reality they are simply the mounts that have stopped doing their job. Ignoring this can cause the engine to hit critical components or for the fuel hoses to tension until they break. A visual inspection every 6 months can reveal to you if the rubber is giving way. A workshop trick consists of putting on the parking brake, putting the car in gear and giving small touches to the accelerator while someone observes the engine from the side with safety. If the block jumps excessively, it is time to change the mounts. Keeping the engine firm not only improves ride comfort, but avoids chain failures in the entire propulsion system. But firmness is not only necessary in the engine. In Rank 6, we will talk about the feet of the car and a secret that will save you a fortune on tires. Rank 6, the cross-rotation and the tire memory. Almost all drivers know that they must rotate their tires, but very few understand why or how to do it correctly. Sam explained that tires develop a wear memory based on their position. The front wheels bear the weight of the engine, the stress of braking and the lateral forces of turning, while the rear ones usually roll with much less load. If you leave the tires in the same position for their entire life, they will wear asymmetrically and start to hum. The secret is not just moving them from front to back, but performing a cross-rotation according to the type of traction of your vehicle. This ensures that each part of the tread faces different friction forces, evening out the wear. Sam recommended doing this every 10,000 kilometers without fail. A well-rotated set of tires can last up to 80,000 kilometers, while a neglected one can become useless at 40,000. Additionally, rotation is the perfect moment to inspect the brakes and suspension components. Mechanics prefer that you do not rotate them so that you have to buy new tires twice as often. Keeping the wear geometry under control is the most direct way to save money and guarantee grip in emergency situations. But be careful, because there is a component that never complains until it breaks and leaves you stranded in the middle of nowhere, as we will see in Rank 5. Rank 5, the accessory belt and the danger of the squeak. The accessory belt is responsible for transmitting the movement of the crankshaft to the alternator, the water pump and the air conditioning compressor. It is a piece of reinforced rubber that works under constant tension. Many drivers ignore the small squeak that sounds when starting in the morning, thinking that it is just moisture. Sam warned that this sound is the cry for help of a system that is about to fail. If that belt breaks while you are driving, you will run out of power steering immediately. The alternator will stop charging the battery and, most dangerously, the water pump will stop, causing an engine overheat in a matter of 2 or 3 minutes. Mechanics often wait for the belt to break to also charge you for the towing and the overheating repair. The trick is to inspect the belt every month, looking for transverse cracks or shiny areas that indicate slipping. Changing a belt preventively is an economical and simple task that guarantees that all auxiliary systems work in harmony. Sam also recommended changing the tensioner bearing, since a weak tensioner is the main killer of new belts. Do not allow a $30 part to destroy your $5,000 engine. And speaking of tension, Rank 4 deals with the pressure that really matters, the one that keeps your tires alive. Rank 4, the inflation pressure and the asphalt heat. The tire pressure is the most ignored aspect of maintenance and, paradoxically, the easiest to correct. Sam used to say that a tire with low pressure is like sandpaper that heats up until it self-destructs. When a tire does not have enough air, its sidewalls flex excessively while rolling. This flexing generates brutal internal heat that degrades the steel and rubber structure of the tire from the inside. A tire deflated only 5 or 6 pounds below what is recommended not only increases fuel consumption by 5%, but reduces the useful life of the rubber by 25%. Additionally, the braking distance increases and the water evacuation capacity in rain decreases drastically. Mechanics rarely check your tire pressure unless you ask for a full service, but you must do it every time you go to the gas station. The secret is to check the pressure always with cold tires, that is, before having driven more than 3 kilometers. Always follow the sticker found on the frame of the driver door, not the maximum figure printed on the tire. Keeping the correct pressure ensures uniform wear and protects the rims from impacts against potholes. But there is something else you must check under the car, something that hides behind a metal grid, as we will see in Rank 3. Rank 3, the catalytic converter and the poison of poor combustion. The catalytic converter is one of the most expensive parts of your car, filled with precious metals like platinum, palladium, and rhodium. Its function is to transform toxic gases into less harmful emissions. A catalytic converter does not break by itself. It is always killed by a previous engine problem. Sam explained that an engine that burns oil or that has an ignition failure is sending raw fuel directly to the catalytic converter. That fuel ignites inside the catalytic converter, which is already extremely hot, causing the internal ceramic structure to melt or break. A clogged catalytic converter restricts the gas outlet, causing the engine to lose power, heat up, and eventually stop. A replacement can easily cost more than $1,500. Many mechanics will tell you that the catalytic converter is old, but the secret is to keep the spark plugs and the oxygen sensors in perfect condition to ensure that the combustion is clean. If you notice a smell similar to rotten eggs, or if the car feels heavy when accelerating, you could have a saturation problem. Performing preventive maintenance of the ignition system is the only way to protect this technological jewel under your chassis. But the electrical system also has its own guardian, one that almost no one knows, in Rank 2. Rank 2, the ground wire and the electrical ghost. Modern cars are computers on wheels that depend on millimetric electrical signals. However, all that electronics depends on a thick copper wire that joins the engine block and the battery with the chassis of the car. This is the ground wire. Sam used to say that half of the unexplained electrical problems of a car, lights that flicker, sensors that fail, difficulties starting, are due to a rusty or loose ground connection. Due to its exposed location, this wire suffers from corrosion by salt, water, and mud. A bad ground creates an electrical resistance that forces the current to seek alternative paths through other thinner wires, which can burn expensive components or even the engine control unit. Mechanics often spend hours looking for a software failure when the problem is simply a rusty screw. Once a year, you must locate the main ground points, loosen the screw, clean the metallic surface with sandpaper until it shines, and tighten it again. This simple act guarantees that all sensors receive the exact voltage they need to function. It is the definitive cure for electrical ghosts. And now, get ready, because we have reached rank number 1, the most sacred secret of Sam's workshop. Rank 1, the ritual of prolonged driving. We have reached the end of our forbidden manual, and the most important advice from Sam is the one that seems to go against everything they teach us about saving. Once a month, you must take your car out on the road and drive it continuously for at least 45 minutes at highway speeds. Sam called this the thermal purge cycle, and it is the reason why the cars of frequent travelers usually last much longer than those of people who only drive in the city. Urban use is the worst enemy of an engine. Short trips of 5 or 10 minutes do not allow the oil to reach the temperature necessary to evaporate condensation water and fuel residues that seep into the crankcase. If you only drive in the city, your oil becomes an acidic broth that corrodes the engine from the inside. By driving on the road for a prolonged time, you allow the crankcase ventilation system to work at full capacity, cleaning the oil and eliminating carbon deposits from the combustion chambers. This monthly ritual ensures that the catalytic converter reaches its self-cleaning temperature, that the battery charges deeply, and that all moving parts are lubricated with hot and fluid oil. It is the mechanical equivalent of taking your dog to run in the fields after a week in a small apartment. If you apply this habit, together with the other 19 secrets that we have revealed, your car will not only serve you for years, but it will become a legendary machine capable of defying time. Mechanical immortality is not a myth. It is the result of knowing, listening to, and respecting the engineering you have in your hands. We have traveled a long road, from the chemistry of fluids to the physics of vibrations, unearthing the secrets that the automotive industry has tried to hide behind vague user manuals and planned obsolescence strategies. These 20 tips are your armor against unnecessary repairs and your passport to a longevity that few drivers ever experience. Uncle Sam always said that the best mechanic is not the one who knows how to fix everything, but the owner who knows how to prevent something from breaking.